With Season 9 of The Walking Dead having wrapped up not too long ago, and the finale receiving a rather mixed reception, I thought it'd be a good time to look back on all the finales of the show so far. The good, the not so good, and the controversial. To do this chronologically, we'll begin with Season 1, Episode 6, TS19, which first aired on the 10th of December 2010. Now, while I find this episode is generally pretty liked, there's grounds to say it's actually a rather controversial finale as well. Most criticism comes from the entire concept of going to the CDC in the first place. After all, the CDC plotline is unique to the show, and essentially replaces the whole Wiltshire Estates plotline from the comics. But personally, I think TS19 is an outstanding episode. Firstly, our characters are in Atlanta, and the CDC is there in real life too. So it's a logical step for the group to decide to go there. I mean, besides its proximity to the city, why wouldn't you go? The episode is also a really powerful end of the beginning for our group. It shows that there is no cure, and by extension of that, the show isn't about the cure, but the characters simply surviving, which is more than apparent when the CDC, completely blows up. And our characters have been left with their decision to keep on fighting for their lives. The soundtrack really elevates the hopelessness of the situation when they are all faced with death.
It sets the air on fire. No pain. An end to sorrow, grief, regret.
All the characters have got stuff going on, particularly with Dale and Andrea, whose conflict is really emotional.
Don't pull this, Dale.
I'm not pulling anything. If you're staying, I stay too. He's right. We know what's waiting for us out there. I don't want to face it alone.
Dale, get the hell out. I don't want you here.
Too bad. You don't get to do that. To come into somebody's life, make them care, and then just check out.
Damn it, Dale, why are you gonna make me tear up all the time? And a standout for the episode is certainly Dr. Edwin Jenner, portrayed by Noah Emmerich.
Come on! Surprise party! Whew.
This character is actually an excellent example of writing a short yet concise and strong character. He's essentially the main antagonist of the season, because he does create the ultimate conflict for our characters and puts all their lives on the line. But it's hard to call him that because he's just a guy with reasonable motivation. He suffered so much and only thinks he's being kind to the group by killing them quickly. He's a well-written and acted character. And this creates a conflict which I personally find is stronger than the Wiltshire Estate storyline ever was. Also, the final line Dr. Edward Jenner says to Rick, "The day will come when you won't be," is brought back beautifully as the title of the Season 7 premiere.
There's your chance. Take it.
Grateful.
The day will come when you won't be.
I give TS19 a 9 out of 10. The finale of Season 2 is Episode 13, Beside the Dying Fire, which first aired on the 23rd of March 2012. This is a well-regarded and excellent episode pretty much all around. There are plenty of striking visuals of Herschel's farm being overrun and the barn burning down, and it truly feels like a classic Romero zombie film here with a feeling of hopelessness all around. Infinite ammo Herschel also never gets old. I also love when Rick shoots a walker behind Herschel and the blood is just all over the back of Herschel's head when he turns around and he's just completely oblivious. But it's not actually all this action and horror that makes this episode stand out for me. What sells this episode is really the development of Rick. Season 2 was all about pushing Rick further and further to the edge, and here he finally snaps, and it's excellent. It's an iconic moment.
Go on, there's the door. You can do better. Let's see how far you get. No takers? Fine. We get one thing straight. You're staying. This isn't a democracy anymore.
Without this development, I don't think the episode would hold up as well. I actually think it almost pales in comparison a bit to the prior 2 episodes also, which are both excellent episodes in their own right, and some of the best of the series. Despite this, Beside the Dying Fire is a fantastic end to Season 2, giving this a 10 out of 10. Season 3, Episode 16, Welcome to the Tombs, first aired on March 31st, 2013. This is in fact another rather controversial episode of the show, given that it all seemed to be heading towards the conclusion of the Governor arc. I'm sure comic fans all around were expecting the utter slaughter from the Made to Suffer chapter of the comics. And while the Governor does attack the prison, they are driven away and don't come back. However, given we end up getting all that in Season 4's mid-season finale, Too Far Gone, I don't think this is an anticlimactic finale at all, actually. I actually find it a bit better that the Governor stuck around for longer. Because, well, Philip Morrissey is so enjoyable as the Governor, but also because we can become more attached to the prison and the group in that time, and also get a more human side to the Governor before his conflict ends. What we get in the Season 3 finale though is a really nice wrap up to a lot of the season's character arcs. Andrea telling Rick she knows how the safety works, like how he taught her in Season 1, is a really sweet callback and makes her death all the more emotional. Although the bit where Andrea keeps wasting time trying to get free is pretty annoying.
What the fuck are you doing?
Rick's arc is also a standout point of the episode for me. For the season he kept seeing Laurie appear over and over, symbolizing his guilt taking over. But when he lets in all the people of Woodbury and ends the conflict relatively peacefully, he finally looks up to the walkway, no longer seeing Laurie. It's a really quaint and heartfelt moment, and gives the ending of Season 3 a very satisfying bookend for me. Also, we get the Governor's amazing psycho slaughter of the Woodbury citizens, giving this a 9 out of 10. The Season 4 Episode 16 finale, titled A, first aired on the 31st of March 2014. This is a truly special episode. So much happens. I remember being so tense the first time I saw this. The entire sequence where Joe and the Claimers ambush our group is crazy. And even crazier is when Rick bites out Joe's throat and flat out slaughters the guy assaulting Carl. What a fucking moment that is. The cutting back and forth between the time gap between Season 3 and 4 is also an excellent way the episode shows just how brutal and dark our characters have become since their home at the prison was destroyed, perfectly setting up the darker Season 5. And that's all just in the first half of the episode. Then we get just as tense stuff with the Terminus setup, where everything really goes to shit. I always get nervous rewatching this moment where Gareth makes Carl wait for a moment out in the open. I always get an awful feeling of how Carl could just get killed right then and there and Rick could do nothing about it. Then, of course, we get the iconic moment in the train cart. It's an amazing end and such a satisfying moment seeing all these characters reuniting, especially after all the amazing development they've gotten since they've been separated. And we all know Rick didn't say they're screwing with the wrong people. What he really said is,
They're fucking with the wrong people.
this is a 10 out of 10 finale. Season 5's finale, Episode 16, titled Conquer, first aired on the 29th of March 2015. This is a pretty unique finale. Not only is it the first finale to run for an hour, rather than the average 45 minutes, but it also doesn't have a major death within Rick's group. And despite this episode's heavier emphasis on character rather than action, it's really well received all around and is another excellent finale. Every character has their moment here. It's great to see Morgan back again, and the opening scene where he takes out the wolves is a great entrance for him. The whole episode centralized around this Alexandria meeting concerning whether or not to exile Rick is also an excellent premise for the episode. The meeting itself is really strong, and Abraham's speech about Rick is a classic.
There's a vast ocean of shit that you people don't know shit about. Rick knows every fine grain of said shit. And then some.
The way everything ratchets up in the final act is also super tense, although my one problem with this episode is really the whole Glenn and Nicholas conflict, where they make you hate Nicholas so much, but Glenn still refuses to kill him. I just don't quite buy Glenn sparing Nicholas after getting not only Noah torn to bits, but also flat out shooting Glenn in the chest and trying to kill him. It's kind of absurd, but I get its thematic purpose, contrasting with Rick's more no-nonsense attitude, where he kills Pete in the blink of an eye, which is an excellent end when Morgan arrives right as Rick does this, not only signaling a change in Rick morally, but also that Rick is beginning to gain more respect and power within Alexandria. Rick really does get the best finale speeches too.
I was thinking, how many of you do I have to kill to save your lives? But I'm not gonna do that. You're gonna change. I'm not sorry for what I said last night. I'm sorry for not saying it sooner.
I give this a 9 out of 10. Season 6's episode 16 finale, titled The Last Day on Earth, first aired on the 4th of April 2016, and is no doubt the most controversial finale the show has had up to date. And this is all because of one moment, the cliffhanger. The infamous scene where Negan goes to kill one of our characters and they cut to black before revealing who it is. This created a huge uproar at the time and sort of shifted a lot of the fans into a negative mindset about the show from here on out. And that's fair. The whole episode is building to this moment, and they simply don't deliver on what was promised. There's no doubt this finale would have been such a better story and a truly memorable episode if they at least had one of the group's deaths right at the end. Literally all they needed was 30 more seconds of what was already an hour and 5-minute episode, just to show Abraham's death, and then you cut to black. Bam! That's how you get them. But they went the cheap route, and made a mistake here, and frankly it continues to hurt the show till this day. Now, despite this unignorable decision right at the end, this episode is actually a pretty damn good one otherwise. The Morgan and Carol subplot is well handled, and it's a huge moment when Morgan finally kills one of those saviors. There's a really heartfelt moment between Eugene and Abraham, which is a great step in Eugene's development. The tension is also built up perfectly. The utter scale of the savior forces growing before the group's eyes is frightening. There's a serious feeling of dread in the air the whole episode, and it all leads to the group being in their most hopeless situation ever. It's a scary event, and Rick's utter fear only makes it all the more emotional. The air is thick with tension, and Negan's entrance is about as perfect as you can get. And while TV Negan doesn't quite top the Governor in terms of menace for me, he's still pretty damn great. This episode had audiences holding their breath all over the world that night it aired, and it's forever a shame they didn't fully deliver. Despite this though, it's a solid episode on all other fronts. It's simply that one decision which hurts it right at the end, which is why I give this episode an 8 out of 10. On the 3rd of April 2017, Season 7's finale, Episode 16, The First Day of the Rest of Your Life, premiered. And this is my least favorite finale of the entire series so far. In fact, up until this very episode, this was my least favorite episode of the entire show. First of all, it largely focuses on Sasha, who is a character I've never really been a fan of. A lot of it I think is actually down to the actress, who just never conveyed enough relatable emotions for me to be able to connect with her on a level I do with most of the other characters. And it's so obvious she's going to die this episode that I'm always sort of just waiting until she does, because I just really don't care for her. It's also stupid that Negan let Sasha lay in the coffin on the way to Alexandria. It's just like, just why? Part of this finale's problem for me is also the fact that the story moves rather slowly for much of Season 7, and because of that, they almost lay too much expectation and weight on their shoulders for this single episode, where everyone is expecting this war between Rick and Negan to really begin, not to mention the great comic source material for this storyline. So everything's sort of just crammed in here in this final episode. And while they do ratchet up the tension well, and it's pretty exciting to see everyone prepare for Negan's arrival, and Andrew Lincoln is predictably amazing, particularly in this scene where he refuses to give in to Negan anymore, it's great stuff.
You can do it right in front of me. You can take my hands. I told you already, I'm gonna kill you. All of you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But nothing is gonna change that nothing.
But then the battle starts. I could spend hours just on this sequence alone. It really makes just no sense at all. Everyone's everywhere, I have no idea the geography of the battle. No one ever seems to see Shiva the tiger running up to them. I don't know what Daryl's saying here. Negan's spouting off cringy lines. Morgan's running around with his staff. People are just charging at each other even though they're using machine guns. Like, what the fuck is happening? It doesn't make any sense. It's like this bit here, where Maggie starts at the end of the car, goes around the car, and then sees Daryl and the others on the other side of the car. And they all point their guns at each other like, whoa, didn't see you there. But they were on the same end of the car that she started at. Not to mention the music not suiting at all, and everything is just awkward.
Now, we finish this!
Hell, the episode before this had a way better executed, more exciting action sequence when the group has to hold off a horde of walkers. At least then I knew what was happening and where everyone was.
Don't go anywhere. Everyone, shots within 10 feet of the line. That's it.
This is just amateur level execution, and for the first battle of All Out War, it's disappointing. Even the ending is just so overly dramatic and ham-fisted that it doesn't work for me, and honestly ends the season on a pretty sour note, giving this a pretty generous 6 out of 10. Season 8's finale, Wrath, premiered on the 16th of April 2018, and is another rather finale. I mean, come on, seasons 7 and 8 are of course the weakest seasons of the show, so it's not surprising their finales aren't great either. This is the end of All Out War, and while I prefer this battle over the last season finales, it's not particularly amazing here either. The lead up has some pretty blatant expository dialogue.
I still don't understand.
Ricky will slip some intel, make him think and get the jump on me.
And I don't really know why Rick and his group just walk out into the open like this, but it's a pretty good moment when all the savior guns explode in their faces, and it's cool seeing Negan and Rick face off one last time. But their dialogue is just so short and uninspired.
You are torn open. I am bigger. I am better. And I got a bet.
We can have a future.
I know I will.
Just give me 10 seconds so I can tell you how.
No.
Just give me 10 seconds for Carl.
Carl said it doesn't have to be a fight anymore.
He was wrong. H. No. He was right.
Like, that's all you got? After all this? And then it turned out everyone was just watching Rick and Negan fight? Okay, thanks for the help, guys. The whole Maggie, Jesus, and Daryl being bad guys in this final scene is also just stupid. It's like, what the fuck? Why is Jesus smiling and nodding too? What is going on here? But there is some good stuff here. Rick sparing Negan is a pretty powerful moment, particularly when he gives his speech, and especially when he's just sitting there and crying beside the tree in the field. It's really heartfelt and a nice moment to just take a breather after the whole war is finally finished. Dwight also gets a nice ending where he goes off to look for Sherry. A solid send-off for his character. The final monologue by Rick is a bit cheesy too, but it's a nice callback to the moment where Rick wants to show Carl the new world, and is an emotionally strong final moment. I give this episode a 7 out of 10. Now, we're finally here at Season 9's finale, The Storm, which aired on the 1st of April 2019. And is another rather controversial entry into this list of series finales for the show. The complaints are largely that it's slow and nothing really happens, and to be honest, I disagree. I think this is a wonderful season finale, and one of the best we've had in years. Yes, this episode is slower than the rest of Season 9, but Season 9 has been remarkably fast-paced and action-packed. We seriously get a string of non-stop crazy shit happening in every episode, culminating in the insane episode 15 ending. So I think this show has well earned itself a slower episode this time around. I find it extremely refreshing to just take a bit of a breather and just watch these characters deal with the aftermath of not only the deaths of the last episode, but also losing the kingdom and dealing with the winter storm. We get Ezekiel and Carol's relationship falling apart, Lydia feeling extreme guilt and wanting to die, but bonds with Carol towards the end, Michonne finally accepting that their group truly needs to stick together, and Negan saving Judith and proving true signs of change for the good. And in one of my favourite scenes, we get everyone having a sweet moment of levity, where they have a snowball fight. I don't know about you guys, but this chokes me up. Despite everything they've all been through, and all the pain they've suffered and the conflict going on, they take a moment just to have fun and forget about it all. It's really sweet and is an example of the heart The Walking Dead has, which has always been the show's most appealing aspect for me. The winter storm is also excellently handled, and we pretty much got everything I would have wanted to see with winter in the show. And we also get some nice teasers for the future, but ultimately it's about these characters dealing with the aftermath of the devastating event of last episode, and I'm more than happy it takes its time here. Angela Kang in fact made episode 15 the crazy episode that it was because she didn't want to prolong that to the finale and just have a filler episode for episode 15 instead. We're literally getting more content here than we otherwise would have. Some fans just make no sense to me. They're either complaining it's too much about humans and they want more zombies, and that they don't want any stupid cliffhangers, but the moment when we get more zombies, character development, and a satisfying full concluding episode with no cliffhanger, and all the usually fast-paced episodes beforehand, but people then still complain. Jesus, I mean, come on. Daryl smiling at the portraits of Glenn and Herschel is enough for me alone. Giving this a 9 out of 10. Keep it up, Angela Kang. So, there we go. All the season finales of the show and my thoughts on them. If I had to rank them, it'd probably be something like this. I'm not really sure. I don't know. Despite some being not as good as others, I like them all to varying degrees. Anyway, what are your guys' thoughts? Did you like the season 9 finale? If so, why or why not? Thanks for watching and have a great day.